How many times have you created the perfect routine? Wake up at 5, train, meditate, work focused, read before bed. Monday, you're a warrior. Tuesday, you're still holding on. Wednesday starts to crack. Thursday, you negotiate, just not today. Friday, you've already abandoned everything and promised to restart next Monday. This cycle doesn't happen because you're weak or undisciplined. It happens because you built your routine on the wrong foundation. Miyamoto Musashi maintained the same daily routine for decades, not because he had superhuman motivation, but because he understood something you haven't grasped yet. Routines that work don't depend on motivation, they depend on architecture. And samurai architecture is completely different from what you've been taught. The lie they sold you is that routine is a matter of willpower. Be disciplined, have focus, commit. All of this is true, but useless without correct structure. It's like telling someone be strong without teaching them how to train. Musashi didn't trust willpower, he eliminated the need for it. His routine had so little friction, so little room for negotiation, so little dependence on mood that it simply happened day after day, year after year. He woke up at the same time, not because he decided every morning, but because he removed the decision from the equation. He trained at the same moment, not because he felt like it, but because it was who he was. The difference between routines that collapse and routines that last decades lies in 3 principles the samurai mastered and that you're going to learn right now. In this video, you'll receive the exact method to build a routine that not only works for a week, but becomes so much a part of who you are that breaking it seems harder than maintaining it. These aren't productivity tricks or motivational hacks. It's habit engineering tested by centuries of warriors who couldn't afford to fail. If you apply these principles for the next 30 days, on day 31 you won't have a routine anymore, you'll have an identity. And identity doesn't need motivation to express itself, it just exists. The question isn't whether this works, the question is, are you ready to stop reinventing the wheel every Monday and finally build something that lasts? Why 97% of routines die in 7 days? The mortality rate of new routines is brutal and predictable. Monday you wake up inspired, build an ambitious routine with 10 new habits. Wake up at 5, run 5 miles, meditate 30 minutes, eat a healthy breakfast, read for an hour, work focused, without distractions. Train in the afternoon, eat a light dinner, study at night, sleep at 10. In the first 3 days, novelty carries you. On the 4th day, you wake up tired and skip the run, but maintain the rest. On the 5th day, you skip the run and meditation. On the 6th, you're back to quick coffee and chaotic work. On the 7th day, the routine is dead, and you're planning the next version to start next Monday. This pattern repeats because you committed 3 fatal errors that Musashi would never commit. Error number 1. Excessive complexity. You tried to change 10 variables simultaneously, creating 10 failure points. When anyone breaks, the domino effect knocks down the others. Musashi built in layers, one element at a time, until it became automatic, only then adding the next. Error number 2, dependence on motivation. Your routine only works when you're energized and inspired. On the first bad day, it collapses because it was built for perfect days. Musashi built for the worst-case scenario, not the best. If the routine works on the worst day, it thrives on any day. Error number 3, lack of identity. You do these things to achieve something, not because it's who you are. When the result is delayed or disappears, the action disappears with it. The problem isn't you, it's the method. Every routine built on motivation has an expiration date. Every routine with many components has multiple failure points. Every routine without central identity is temporary. The solution isn't have more discipline, it's to architect differently from the beginning. And this architecture starts with understanding the fundamental difference between how you build your schedule and how a samurai constructed their rituals. This difference is everything. The samurai concept of ritual versus common agenda. Your agenda is a to-do list optimized for maximum efficiency. Each time block has a specific function, a measurable result, an objective to be achieved. You follow this agenda with the same energy as an employee punching a clock, doing the minimum necessary to check the box and move to the next task. There's no soul, no deep intention, no real presence. It's mechanical, empty, unsustainable. That's why you abandon it in a week, when the novelty passes and the agenda reveals itself for what it really is. A self-imposed prison you built yourself. Musashi didn't have an agenda, he had sacred rituals. And the difference between the two determines whether your routine lasts 7 days or 7 decades. A samurai ritual is completely different. When Musashi woke before dawn, it wasn't just to gain productive hours in the day. It was an act of reverence to the quietest moment of existence, when the world still sleeps and the warrior finds himself. Each movement had deep meaning. The way he washed his face wasn't hygiene, it was purification. The way he sat in meditation wasn't relaxation, it was preparation for internal war. The way he wielded the wooden sword to train wasn't exercise, it was communion with the tool that kept him alive. Ritual transforms the ordinary into extraordinary through intention. The same action that in your agenda is just morning exercise becomes, in the samurai ritual, the forge of discipline that will sustain the entire day. The crucial difference lies in the energy with which you execute. An agenda drains you because each task is an obligation that must be fulfilled to get to the end of the day. A ritual energizes you because each action is an affirmation of identity, a sacred vow renewed. Musashi didn't train to check a box. He trained because it was who he was. When you transform your routine into ritual, waking early stops being sacrifice and becomes celebration. Training stops being effort and becomes devotion. Working stops being obligation and becomes expression of purpose. But to build rituals that last, you need the samurai principle that allows evolution without collapse. And this principle changes everything. Kaizen, the Japanese principle of continuous incremental improvement, isn't about being gradual out of laziness, it's military strategy. When you try to implement 10 simultaneous changes, you're fighting on 10 fronts at the same time. Your brain, which hates change and loves established patterns, mobilizes total resistance. Each new habit drains willpower, and willpower is a finite resource that depletes throughout the day. In a week, you're in internal civil war, exhausted, and the entire routine collapses. Musashi understood this intuitively. He didn't build a fortress all at once. He laid one perfect brick, then another, then another. Each brick had time to dry and become a solid part of the structure before the next was added. Slow is fast. Too fast is stagnation, disguised as ambition. The samurai method of layer building works like this. Choose one single minimal ritual and practice it for 7 consecutive days until it becomes automatic, as natural as brushing your teeth. It can be waking up at the same time, or 5 minutes of conscious breathing, or 10 push-ups, or simply making your bed. Just one, but executed with unshakable perfection for 7 days. On the 8th day, add a second layer that connects naturally to the first. If the first was waking early, the second can be cold water on the face immediately after getting up. Practice both for 7 days. On the 15th day, add the third layer. In 30 days, you'll have a routine of 4 to 5 deeply rooted rituals, not 10 superficial habits fighting for survival. The beauty of this method is that it creates momentum instead of resistance. Each small victory releases dopamine and reinforces the identity of person who keeps their word to themselves. Each well-established layer becomes solid foundation for the next. At the end of 90 days, you have an unshakable structure that seems easier to maintain than abandon. Musashi took years to build the routine that made him legendary, but each year added layers on solid foundation, never restarting from zero. You don't need years, you need 30 days of intelligent construction. And this construction starts with the most important ritual of all, the one that determines whether the rest of the day will be victory or defeat. The non-negotiable awakening, the samurai's first 20 minutes. The first 20 minutes after waking determine whether you'll live the day as a warrior or as a slave to circumstances. Musashi woke between 4 and 5 in the morning every single day, without exception, for decades. Not because he had important meetings or tight deadlines, but because he understood that the first victory of the day is against yourself. When the alarm sounds and your body screams for 5 more minutes, that's the decisive battle. Win there and you enter a momentum of victories. Lose there and you've already started negotiating with your own word. And if you negotiate with yourself in the morning, you'll negotiate all day long. This first moment isn't preparation for life. It is life itself. It's where discipline is born or dies every single day. The ritual of the modern samurai's first 20 minutes is simple but non-negotiable. First, alarm far from the bed, impossible to turn off without getting up completely. Second, as soon as your feet touch the floor, cold water on your face or 60-second cold shower to shock the nervous system and force total presence. Third, 3 minutes of deep controlled breathing, 4 seconds inhaling, 4 holding, 6 exhaling to calm the system and create clarity. Fourth, 5 minutes of seated mokuso, spine straight, observing thoughts without getting caught in any. Fifth, 5 minutes of simple physical movement, push-ups, squats, plank, whatever, just to wake the body. Sixth, 2 minutes planning the one thing that if done today, the day will be a victory. 20 minutes total. Zero negotiation. The golden rule of this ritual is the same Musashi followed. Never miss 2 consecutive days. There will be bad days where you slept poorly, are sick, or life exploded. On those days, do the minimum version. Get up at the time, cold water on face, 3 deep breaths. 3 minutes total. But never skip completely, because skipping 1 day is an event. Skipping 2 days is a new pattern. And new patterns destroy months of construction in weeks. Musashi trained with fever, with wounds, with hunger. Not because he was a masochist, but because he understood that the day you negotiate with your discipline is the day it starts to die. Establish these 20 minutes as sacred and immutable, but 20 minutes alone don't sustain an entire day. You need the 3 pillars, the 3 pillars of the unshakable routine: body, mind, mission. Every routine that lasts decades is built on 3 interdependent pillars that mutually reinforce each other. Musashi didn't separate physical training from mental training, from strategic work. Everything was part of the same path, the way of the warrior. But for you to apply this today, you need to understand each pillar individually before integrating them. First pillar, body. Not aesthetic body to post on social media, but functional body that serves as a reliable vehicle of the will. Musashi trained 1 to 3 hours daily with heavy wooden swords, repeating the same movements 1,000 times until muscle memorized perfectly. He didn't train to get strong, he trained so physical weakness would never be the variable of his defeat. For you, this means non-negotiable daily movement, 20 to 30 minutes minimum. No excuses, no negotiation. Second pillar, mind. Strong body with chaotic mind is a wild horse that throws you to the ground repeatedly. Musashi practiced mokuso and mushin daily, sometimes for hours, to master the space between stimulus and response. Trained mind isn't a mind that never feels fear or anger. It's a mind that feels but doesn't blindly obey. For you, this means 10 to 15 minutes daily of intentional silence. It can be formal meditation, it can be walking without music or podcast, it can be sitting in the park observing nature. The format matters less than consistency. This time isn't optional. It's essential maintenance of the most important tool you possess. Without it, decisions become emotional, focus becomes fragmented, and you become a slave to impulses. Third pillar, mission. Strong body and clear mind without directed purpose is wasted potential. Musashi didn't train randomly. He trained to master the sword and develop unbeatable strategy. Every action had a clear north. For you, this means 2 to 3 hours daily of deep work on the thing that really matters, not the urgencies that scream loudest. Identify your central mission, that thing which, if done with excellence for the next few years, completely changes your life, and protect sacred time for it every day. No interruptions, no multitasking, no self-pity, just relentless execution. When these 3 pillars are active daily, body energizes mind, mind directs mission, mission gives meaning to body. It's a self-reinforcing cycle, but executing this requires a time structure most people don't know. Musashi Time Blocks, absolute focus versus modern dispersion. Musashi didn't work 8 hours diluted in constant distractions. He worked in blocks of absolute and total focus where only one thing existed in the universe. When practicing sword, nothing existed except the movement of the blade. When painting, nothing existed except the brush and canvas. When studying strategy, nothing existed except the principles of war. This ability to completely eliminate everything that isn't the target is what separated Musashi from mediocre warriors. And this same ability is what separates men who accomplish extraordinary things from men who live lives of permanent distraction. You work 8 hours, but produce 2 hours of real value, because the other 6 were consumed by interruptions, multitasking, and fragmented attention. Musashi produced more in 2 hours of total focus than most in weeks of dispersed effort. The Musashi Blocks technique is brutal in its simplicity. Choose the most important task of the day, the one that, if completed with excellence, makes everything else secondary. Eliminate all possible exits, phone in another room, internet blocked if necessary, door closed, noise-canceling headphones if you need them. Set timer for 90 minutes. During these 90 minutes, there's only you and the task. Don't check email, don't answer messages, don't quickly look at anything, just work. When the mind tries to drag you to distraction, and it will try hundreds of times, you just note distraction and return to work. At first it's torture. The mind screams for novelty dopamine. But on the 20th block, something changes. You enter a flow state where time disappears and quality work emerges naturally. After 90 minutes, stop mandatorily. 15 minutes of complete reset, walk, drink water, stretch, look out the window. Don't substitute work with more screen, substitute with physical movement that oxygenates the brain. This reset isn't a reward, it's maintenance. Then you can do a second 90-minute block on a different task, and eventually a third, if energy permits. But never more than 3 90-minute blocks in a day. Quality beats quantity. Musashi knew that 3 hours of absolute focus produce more than 12 hours of mediocre effort. Implement this in the next 30 days. 1 90-minute block in the first week, 2 blocks in the second, 3 in weeks 3 and 4. But focus without energy is impossible, and energy comes from the correct fuel. How to shield your routine against inevitable chaos. Life doesn't respect your perfect routine. Emergencies arise, you get sick, unexpected commitments appear, exhaustion knocks at the door. Most people use these events as excuses to completely abandon the routine and restart Monday. Musashi faced infinitely worse situations. Wounds from duels, hunger during mountain isolations, brutal weather conditions, and never abandoned his fundamental rituals. He understood a crucial principle you need to engrave in your mind. The perfect day doesn't exist, but the minimum day always exists. Shielded routine isn't a routine that never breaks. It's a routine that has scaled versions for different chaos levels. You need 3 versions of your routine: ideal, realistic, and survival. Ideal version is when everything is aligned. You slept well, have energy, the day is open. On this day, you execute the complete 20-minute morning. 3 90-minute blocks of deep work, 30 to 60-minute training, planned meals, evening review. Realistic version is when the day has unexpected events, but is still manageable. You slept less, have meetings that break flow, you're tired but functional. On this day, you execute 20-minute morning, 2 work blocks, 20-minute training, quick review. Survival version is when the day completely exploded. Slept 3 hours, a sick, traveling, or life turned to total chaos. On this day, you execute only the sacred, non-negotiable core. Wake at the time, cold water on face, 3 deep breaths, 1 minute identifying the day's priority. 5 minutes total, the golden rule that protects the entire structure. You can drop from ideal version to realistic as many times as you need. You can drop from realistic to survival when necessary, but never ever under any circumstances skip the survival version completely. Because skipping 1 day is an event, skipping 2 consecutive days is a new pattern. And new patterns destroy in weeks what took months to build. Musashi maintained his minimum rituals even wounded, even exhausted, even in impossible conditions. Not because he was superhuman, but because he understood that discipline is a muscle that atrophies quickly when not used. Define your 3 versions now and commit that the survival version is your absolute non-negotiable flaw. But even with scaled versions, the routine fails if there's excessive friction. The zero friction principle, removing barriers before starting. Musashi didn't just trust willpower to execute his rituals. He architected the environment so the correct action was the path of least resistance. When he woke before dawn, his wooden sword was already beside the tatami where he would sleep. When he went to meditate, the location was already prepared from the day before. When he trained, everything he needed was at hand. He removed all barriers between intention and action, creating what we call today the zero friction principle. Every second of friction between deciding to do and starting to do is an opportunity for the mind to convince you to quit. Every small obstacle becomes a giant excuse when you're tired or unmotivated. The solution isn't to have more discipline, it's to remove the need for it through strategic preparation. Apply this to each ritual in your routine. Want to train in the morning? Leave workout clothes, shoes, and water bottle prepared the night before beside the bed. When you wake up, you literally trip over the equipment. You don't need to search for anything. Want to meditate? Leave cushion or chair in position, timer configured, environment ready. Want to work in a deep focus block? Before sleeping, leave on the desk only what you need for that specific task, nothing more. Phone charging in another room. Computer with only necessary tabs open, water and coffee ready. When you sit in the morning, you just start. No decisions, no preparation, no friction. Each removed barrier is an anticipated victory against future procrastination. The same principle works in reverse for habits you want to eliminate. Want to stop losing hours on social media? Uninstall the apps. Don't just try to use less. Want to stop eating junk? Don't have junk at home. Don't trust that you'll resist when temptation is in front of you. Musashi understood that environment is stronger than intention. Routine that lasts decades isn't built on heroes making right choices 1,000 times a day. It's built on environments that make the right choice automatic and the wrong choice difficult. Spend 1 hour this week removing friction from the rituals you want to maintain and adding friction to the vices you want to eliminate. This hour will save you hundreds of hours of internal struggle in the coming months. And zero friction allows consistent execution. But execution without course correction leads to slow and invisible deviation. Applied Hansei, the daily review that corrects the course. Hansei is the Japanese concept of deep and honest self-reflection, practiced by both samurai and modern companies like Toyota. It's not simply thinking about the day, it's surgical analysis without self-deception or self-pity. Musashi practiced this religiously every end of day, reviewing each decision, each movement, each moment where he could have acted differently. Not with guilt or shame, but with the cold strategic analysis of a general analyzing battle. What worked and why? What failed and why? What did I learn that I can apply tomorrow? This 5-minute daily practice created a continuous improvement loop that transformed errors into wisdom and successes into replicable patterns. Without Hansei, you repeat the same mistakes indefinitely because you never stop to really see them. The Hansei protocol for daily routine is simple but non-negotiable. Every end of day before sleeping, grab paper and pen, nothing digital. Write honest answers to 3 questions. First, what was my biggest victory today, no matter how small? It can be waking up on time, completing a focus block, resisting a temptation. Recognize and celebrate mentally. This reinforces the neural pattern of success. Second, what was my biggest failure today? No excuses. Not I failed because I was tired. Just I failed to execute X. Take total responsibility. This removes the possibility of self-sabotage disguised as valid reason. Third, what is one specific operational adjustment I'll implement tomorrow to improve? Not I'll try harder, but I'll put my phone in another room before sleeping, or I'll prepare workout clothes tonight. This 5-minute ritual creates 2 powerful things. First, accountability to yourself. When you know you'll review the day at night, you act differently during the day. Second, compound improvement. One small adjustment per day for 30 days is 30 optimizations that transform mediocre routine into a tuned machine. Musashi didn't become invincible through one genius insight. He became invincible through 1,000 small adjustments accumulated over years of daily Hansei. You have the same tool available. Use it for the next 30 days without skipping a single day, and your routine on day 30 will be unrecognizably superior to day 1. But the final question remains: when does this stop being effort and become who you are? From routine to identity. When it stops being effort, there's a magical moment between days 21 and 30 of any consistent practice where something fundamental changes. The action that required willpower in the first days begins to happen with less resistance. The ritual that seemed impossible to maintain becomes strangely natural. And eventually, usually somewhere between 60 and 90 days, complete transformation happens. You stop being person trying to wake early and become person who wakes early. You stop being person trying to meditate and become person who meditates. The routine stops being something you do and becomes something you are. And identity doesn't need motivation to express itself, it just exists. Musashi didn't try to be disciplined, he was disciplined. It wasn't effort, it was nature. This transformation from routine to identity happens through accumulation of evidence. Each day you fulfill what you promised is a vote of confidence in yourself. Each ritual executed is concrete proof that you're the type of person who keeps their word. After 30 consecutive days waking at the same time, your brain stops questioning whether you'll wake up. It just accepts that's what you do. After 90 days of daily focus blocks, deep work stops being a special event and becomes default operating mode. The initial resistance doesn't completely disappear, but it decreases by 90%. What used to require 10 units of willpower now requires 1. And this economy of mental energy frees resources for even higher levels of performance. The final goal isn't to have perfect routine. It's to become the person who doesn't need external routine because you've completely internalized the principles. Musashi, in his final years, didn't follow rigid checklist. He simply lived according to the way that had become his essence. Waking early wasn't a habit, it was reverence to dawn. Training wasn't obligation, it was expression of respect for the art. Meditating wasn't practice, it was return to true nature. You get there through 90 days of consistent execution of the layers you built. After these 90 days, the routine becomes invisible, as much a part of you as breathing. And when you reach this point, you finally understand what Musashi meant when he wrote, "The way is in training." The routine doesn't take you to the life you want. The routine is the life you want. You just received the complete architecture of the samurai routine that works not for days or weeks, but for decades. These aren't motivational tricks that evaporate at the first difficulty. It's habit engineering, tested by centuries of warriors who couldn't fail. Build in layers using Kaizen, non-negotiable 20-minute morning ritual. 3 daily pillars of body, mind, and mission, Musashi 90-minute focus blocks, 3 versions of the routine for different chaos levels, 0 friction principle, and 5-minute evening hansei. Implement this for the next 30 days, and on day 31, you won't have a routine, you'll have an identity. And identity is permanent. Declare your commitment in the comments now. I'm starting my 30-day samurai routine tomorrow. Write this publicly. When you declare, the probability of following through multiplies. And if you've already built routines that lasted months or years, share what worked for you. This community is of modern warriors applying ancestral wisdom. Use the collective energy to sustain your individual journey. Musashi trained alone, but you have an entire tribe walking the same path. Declare now. If this video showed you that sustainable routine isn't about motivation, but about architecture, then subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications. Every video here is a transformation tool based on timeless samurai principles. Don't let this wisdom escape, because tomorrow, your mind will try to convince you that you can start Monday. You can't. You start tomorrow or you never start. Join the digital dojo and walk the way of the unshakable routine. See you on day 30.